Let and Const. Let and Const are two new variable types in JavaScript. These are performance-based variables and come with this thing called scoping, which we'll talk about significantly down the road. So really, to learn about let and const, we have to pretend we know about some other things. So what I'm saying here is let and const, and it's just like how in that last lesson, how I wrote var, short for variable, and then something is equal to something else. Let and const work the same way. The difference is these are scoped to their closest set of curly braces, which actually makes them significantly more performant. So in JavaScript, as soon as you write a variable up here, you can write it and access it anywhere else. Let and const don't let you do that. So as an example, let, I have number of apples is equal to 1. I've got 1 apple right now. Const, this stands for a constant. A constant cannot be reassigned. And so we're going to eventually reassign apples so that there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 apples. But const, we cannot change that. What is something we cannot change? Height. My height is going to be 6 foot 0 inches. And here's, this is actually a great example. This showed up on accident. Is 6 foot 0? This is going to error on me because there's 3 quotations in here. Or quotation marks. I can't use apostrophes because there's an apostrophe in the middle too. So this is going to get really messy. What we can do is this thing called escaping. So I can say 6 apostrophe 0 and then the quotation, but in front of it, I put a slash. And that says, hey, computer who's interpreting this JavaScript, just know that this is supposed to be an actual quotation mark. This is not supposed to actually close the string. So now we can put it inside there. So there we go. Fun little fact there. And let's go ahead and save this. Let's go back here and refresh the page, and that just logs the website from our last lesson. And the variable we named here was apples. So in our console, we can do apples. And that gives us 1. We can reassign this and we can say that there are now 4 apples. And when we type apples, it gives us 4. Now we have a constant here, a constant. We're going to go with my height. And so let's type in height. Height is 6 foot 0. Let's go ahead and change that height to anything else. Literally anything else. It does not matter what it is. And we're going to see an error. And this error is an uncaught type error. Assignment to constant variable. That means we cannot reassign this. And so now we're talking about variable types. We've got var, which is the old school way of writing JavaScript, and let and const. Let is like a variable that you can write over and over and over again. You can reuse that name. Once const is declared, as in height is equal to any value, we cannot declare it, or not redeclare it, but we cannot overwrite it. We need to make sure that this stays the same all the time. Now the difference between let and const versus var is we could say if teacher name, and this is getting into a conditional, we'll talk about these in a little bit, so you don't need to know too much about this at the moment. So if the teacher name is equal to, so we're comparing this, Caleb Tallien, and you can see that it matches perfectly up here. Then, opening curly brace, closing curly brace, do a thing. And so let's go ahead and assign this. So if the teacher is Caleb Tallien, assign these. And what we want to do is then console.log, and we can say, I have how many apples? Apples. Apples. And this is just going to say, I have apples, apples. So I have 1 apples. I have, let's change this to 5. I have 5 apples. And you can actually see my editor is already complaining. It's saying, basically, this is not used. Apples is declared, but its value is never read. And that's because it is scoped to this area. That means it cannot escape this area. Let's go ahead and give this a shot. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. Apples is not defined. We did define it though. It's here. If we just simply move this up, this console log, into where apples is scoped, where it can live between these curly braces, this will work. It says I have 5 apples. But again, if I move that back down, I have 5 apples. Another one could say console.log I am, and then height. I am, not I have. And these semicolons, I like to put them there. They are optional though. Let's go ahead and save that. Refresh, we're going to see, again, apples is not defined. Okay, well, let's move that up to where it is defined, where it's allowed to live within these curly braces. And again, remember, variable does not have this sort of protection around it. Variable we can use anywhere. We can use website in here or in here. It does not matter. It does not care. It is not performant that way. Whereas let and const say, yes, it has to exist in here. So let's go ahead and move I have apples into, well, where apples lives. And refresh. And this says height is not defined. That's coming from line 11 here. And we can see that script.js on line 11. It says height is not defined. So if you ever run into this issue where you have clearly defined a variable using let or const, but it's not working, chances are it's just not allowed to leave its closest set of curly braces. Now, to prove that var is allowed to live anywhere, we can do this. Var height is equal to, and when I refresh this page, go to the console, we're not going to see this error. Let's go ahead and refresh, and I am 6'0". Const does not let me do that. I can actually move apples down as well. Apples is not defined, but if I do var and var, it shows up again. So what's important to note is moving forward, we are going to be using let and const quite a bit. I may occasionally use var, but probably just let and const, and that's going to be scoped to the closest set of curly braces, which means it can only live within its closest set of curly braces. Now, it doesn't need curly braces. They can live without the curly braces. Let's go ahead and save this just as an example. And this works every time I hit refresh. So moving forward, I'm going to try to use let and const. Let means it can be rewritten. Const means it is a constant. It can only have one constant value. It can never be changed. In the next lesson, let's go ahead and write some code notes or code comments, meaning we can add little notes in here. We can comment things out, as in we can make sure that this is not applied to our code. We're going to do that in the next lesson.